Hey guys, Drifter here. Today I want to talk to you about why AOC streaming on Twitch just changed gaming forever. Pandora's box has been opened, it can't go back, and the way that you are going to be viewed and treated and advertised to as a gamer is forever changed. Now, before you dislike the video, before you have a mini panic attack, get depressed, and leave a comment about keeping politics out of gaming because this is your escapism and it's depressing, just take a deep breath, relax, let it flow through you. I feel you on the politics and gaming, but remember what channel you're on. We're not taking political sides today. We're not here to insult anybody or elevate anybody else. What I want to do is do a deep analysis and examine why this event happened, what the strategy was, and most importantly, what it means for your future as a gamer, because it definitely has a lot more to do with the advertising power of Twitch than it does with the actual politics, or more accurately, the reality that you are now far more important than you used to be. I wanted to wait a little bit for the dust to settle on this issue, to give it some time to marinate, to relax a little bit, and not be part of the clickbait, hype, and clout chasing cycle. And by the way, the clout chase on that Twitter thread to get invites to the games was just downright sad. And I did a similar video in the past where I analyzed Donald Trump's relationship to World of Warcraft, which is super interesting, and I'd encourage you to check it out. The short version of what happened in this event is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Ilhan Omar streamed Among Us on Twitch with a lot of popular streamers. These are two very well-known Democratic representatives in the US, politicians, and they're interacting with famous gamers. The stream was set up as part of a Get Out to Vote campaign by AOC. It was incredibly successful. There were about 420,000 live viewers for hours. It was the most talked about political event this week, more so than the debates and the ongoing election. And the game itself was perfect too, because Among Us is of course about the power of voting. Who do we get rid of? What do we do? Can we trust each other? Who's lying? Who's not? And it also, if you die, you can kind of mute yourself and talk about registering to vote between rounds, which is great. The Democratic strategy on this one is incredibly simple, which is just to get more young voters. Younger voters are historically and even currently way more likely to be liberal voters and thus Democratic voters. So pumping up the youth vote pumps up liberal votes in much higher numbers than it does in conservative ones. You'll get some conservative youth, but not, again, in this high in numbers. And it had one alternative strategy, which was to plant the seeds of trust in young people that will be voting later in life. The younger people that watch the stream but still didn't register to vote because they don't care, or they don't like politics, or don't know anything, or the parents don't want them to, or maybe they're just too young, will see politicians and their representatives playing their games, interacting with them, speaking to them in their language and their environment, and this creates a very positive association. It also creates one familiarity and relatability, so that as they mature and enter the political spectrum and start voting later in their life, they're going to remember this event very positively, and of course that'll push them toward the Democratic side of things. Now, after a lot of preamble, let's talk about why this matters to you as a gamer, as an individual gamer right now, and what this means for gaming, gamers, and Twitch is that you are now seen as adult and influential, you as in the audience broadly. For decades, games have been considered just for kids, and then maybe teens, and then maybe lazy college students, but not really adults, right? Adults don't play video games, but that's not true. The demographics for adult video game usage have shifted a long time ago, honestly a decade, maybe 2 decades ago, for now adult males of almost all ages, or really males, not having to say adult, just males of all ages play video games from the time they're little kids to honestly retirees in the old folks home be playing video games these days. Gaming is no longer an oddity or a basement dwelling thing, it's an everyday thing, more popular than TV in my opinion. The demographics also indicate an increasing number of teen and young adult women playing games. There are some games that have a shockingly high percentage of female players, and younger girls especially are playing games at a much higher rate, which I think is a good thing. The average gamer is now a legal adult of voting age who has a job and pays taxes, and thus is important in the political spectrum and just in the economic spectrum. Even with those true facts, you can look all this stuff up on your own, it's very simple to research, companies were ultimately kind of slow to embrace this. Advertising in the gaming space is complicated, it's new, it's very Wild West, it's difficult to get a return on investment. Even though the companies hosting this, Google and Twitch primarily, have tremendous amounts of data so you know exactly who you're advertising to, a lot of the companies were slow to get on board. That's kind of the corporate lag problem when your company gets too big and there's too many layers of managers, it takes too long to make decisions. But AOC and Omar kind of did this very rogue, very cheap and expensive on their own, and the Dems decided to use Twitch as an advertising tool, and that turned a lot of eyes onto Twitch. When a massive and important political party starts using a totally brand new advertising tool to influence their voters, it turns heads. I can imagine almost every major streaming website, gaming company, and ad agency, especially those guys, are waking up to emails from their bosses saying, what's our AOC strategy? How do we copy this? How do we get the next, big hype politician to do our thing? There are politicians emailing us right now, like, how do we blow up on Twitch? How does this work? And what the event signals is not that, like, oh yeah, Dems love Twitch, but rather that gaming and Twitch is now the mainstream form of art and advertising potential. Games have been considered not art for decades as well, and that's not true. I think almost everybody here would say that games are art, in the same kind of way that movies and comics are not always respected and not always considered art, even though that's not true. Even though it's a commercial product, a game is a piece of art, and as a piece of art, it can be political. For example, The Last of Us 2, BioShock, Spec Ops: The Line, the more recent Call of Duty ones are also political. Some of the Black Ops ones are more philosophical. They don't have to be. Games can be truly apolitical, but many are these days. And another trend we need to look at is cord cutting. Cable TV used to be the best place to run national ads. That's where you reached the most amount of people, and more importantly, the most amount of people that were somewhat wealthy, influential, and of voting age. But that's dying now. Even boomers are cutting cable TV and going streaming only. Younger people aren't even doing Netflix. They're just going straight for Twitch and Facebook and YouTube gaming and stuff like that. And my prediction, I believe that cable TV will be very dead, like pathetically, sadly dead, almost non-existent in as little as 10 to 15 years. What's rapidly replacing this for ad agencies is YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and of course, Twitch. The boomers in the country are aging, and they're also losing their influence. As the millennials, and probably even more important than the millennials, the Gen Z take over, become true full adults, engage in the political process, and start, earning some revenue minus the two catastrophic economic events we've been through, more and more advertising is going to move online and to these platforms. The important ads, the political ads, the big boy buy a house and buy a car kind of ads that you don't see too often right now. And the point of all this being is that you, watching this video, your opinion, your vote, and your money are clearly becoming more important. You, as a gamer, as a part of that demographic, the importance that you have in the overall money and political system in America just took a huge step up. And I'm gonna make some predictions. When you get that kind of political interest and that kind of monetary interest involved in gaming, things are going to change a lot. Some perhaps predictably, some more chaotically. I can't see the future, but in the next part of the video, I want to make a few predictions and talk about future political strategy with influencers as I would best believe it will come to pass. I predict that there is a future coming where influencers start running for office. I've considered it myself, and if you think about it, the hardest thing to do to get elected is most people take the path of winning a smaller local election and then working their way up to the national scale, and the hardest thing to do at the local level is get noticed. But influencers are pretty much verified off the bat, thousands of followers, loyal fans, ready to go, easy to stir the pot and get noticed, and it gives them a huge advantage in races like this. The reality is I'm not going to be doing that anytime soon. The first one will probably be somebody much more popular than me and also probably a lot less qualified, which is depressing, but that future is definitely coming. Senator Dobrik is a real possibility. In the more immediate future, I predict that you will see other politicians flooding to Twitch because they want to emulate the same results that AOC got in terms of positive news cycle hype, follower gains, and of course voter registrations and that sort of seeding I talked about, positive associations for later in life. It may not be gaming in particular what they flock to, but they're definitely going to flock to streaming. And if you want eyes on you for streaming, doing it in gaming is a very good and very smart way to start out. And that's not just left-leaning politicians either. We're going to be seeing a lot of younger Republicans, a lot of younger Republican representatives that is, getting on stream and doing the exact same thing. I think that for the Republican side, it's going to be a little bit harder to sell due to the internet's more broad liberal bias, and hard right ideas tend to violate terms of service of a lot of these California companies like Twitch and stuff. So I would expect that the Republicans would have a harder time with this. I'd expect they'd get trolled more, and some of the streamers would like to grandstand and say they won't play to them with them to virtue signal. But the reality is that they're going to do it in the same numbers as Democrats, and the success is going to depend on how well they do it. I also predict that you are going to see some massive failures when people start trying this out. Some of the representatives and candidates that come on Twitch streams and try to appeal to gamers and influencers of all kinds, vloggers, makeup artists, who knows, they're going to get trolled, they're going to get embarrassed, maybe DDoSed off the game, they're going to get hot mic'd, they're going to say things thinking that they're off camera because they're used to more traditional media that are embarrassing. They're going to run into more difficult arguments with some of the smarter gamers out there, and it's going to be embarrassing for some of them that they fundamentally can't understand the games that they're playing. Some of them are going to think that they can just hop in to play games and win and get mad about it, and it's going to be really silly to see. Some streams are going to get downright combative too when a guest, like let's say one famous Twitch streamer wants to host a candidate, and halfway in, that's not as friendly as it planned. They don't get along and they start arguing about things. You are going to see some failures, and you are going to see some political careers go down in flames on Twitch. And my next prediction is that if politicians take to Twitch, or streaming in general, or influencers in general, that it's only going to fuel polarization instead of bringing us together, because the centrist movements in the United States are primarily dominated by the older establishment Democrats and establishment Republicans. They're the moderates. They're the slow to act. They're the middle of the ground. And because of their age and their disconnect from gaming and influencing and technology in general, they're going to be less able to participate in this new medium. Also, their ideas just aren't as spicy, so they won't get quite as much attention. However, the younger representatives for both parties are far better at understanding internet culture, memes, gaming, stuff like that. For example, AOC and Omar are part of the progressive bloc of the Democratic Party that are, in my opinion, honestly kind of close to splitting off because they're ideologically quite different from the establishment Democrats. Republicans more recently have been getting blasted online, fact-checked, shut down, banned, and stuff like that. But the ones that are successful, for a lack of better word, are Trumpers or Trump ideologists, a little bit further to the right than the establishment Republicans. And these tend to be younger, they meme harder, they meme better, they use the internet as a primary point of recruitment and education. They are very good at this. In my opinion, young Republicans are far better at the internet than young Democrats. But the point is that the old heads won't be able to compete in this space, only the young hotheads. So if the Democratic Party is starting to split between corporatists and socialists, then Republicans are starting to split between the old money Republicans and Trumpers. I don't have a good word for that further right bloc. Trumpers is a good word for them. It could get quite ugly. The ideas could get more hyperbolic, more polarized, more crazy. And all of this could happen anyway without Twitch. It doesn't necessarily have to be on Twitch. This can happen in the influencing space, the social media space, the YouTube space, but it's definitely going to move that way because in order to get views and attention in these spaces, you have to be polarized, you have to be extreme, you have to be exciting, you have to say something hot enough to get that perfect clickbait thumbnail to get people to pay attention. You have to say just the right thing for that clip to go viral, and that does not breed moderation or wisdom in politics. As a matter of fact, my personal theory is that a lot of the ideological channels you see on YouTube, for example, like the Young Turks or Crowder or something like that, probably started on this platform with more noble intentions than where they're at now. And what happened is, over time, an audience found them, and in order for the algorithm to push to that audience, they had to say things that the audience liked, or at least would respond to and outrage, things that they don't like. And because they have to get views to survive and have to appeal to the algorithm, and the algorithm looks for the most emotionally spiking, appealing, have to click on it thing, that the type of content they make, the way they think, and the entire discussion moves to a greater extreme. And when this becomes the norm for all politics, it's only going to get worse. It's also possible, just as a brief side effect, that if this is already going to happen, then AOC starting this trend is an early power grab for her coalition to get better known on the internet. The point of all this is that it's going to be crazy. Moving politicians to Twitch or to the influencing space in general is going to be a catalyst for a complete change in the way we handle advertising toward gamers, influencers, and the importance of online discussion. And that includes you who's watching this video at this very moment. Because of this, because you are part of this demographic that is now considered more powerful and more influential, there are going to be a lot more people competing for your ideas and your attention. I might be wrong on all of this, I might be out of my mind, but this is the way I see things going, and I think it's not going to be an overnight process. It's going to be like a decade-long one, but it's going to get wild out there. I might be wrong on all this, but it's just food for thought. I wanted you guys to consider all of these things that are possibly going to change so that you can make better decisions about how to spend your entertainment time online. Guys, that's all for this video. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something useful. If you did, don't forget to like, favorite, and subscribe. Drifter out.